Eğer ki hayatımızda hiç eğer olmasaydı nasıl olurdu? Size şöyle söyleyeyim. Her şey daha...
Merhaba. Şimdi oturumda, üçüncü oturum, stajyer doktor Dilem, dördüncü oturum, stajyer doktor Dilem, Rumet Başak'ın Ethics of Digitalization in Medicine başlıklı konuşmasını yapmak üzere çağırıyorum. Buyurun Dilem Hanım.
Hippocratic oath says, I swear by Apollo, what I may see or hear in the course of the treatment of even outside of the treatment in regard to the life of man, which on no account one must spread abroad. I will keep to myself, holding such things shameful to be spoken about. So, what's ethics? Ethics is the practical practice of acting right, being the right person, and thinking about values. The term ethics is derived from the Greek word ethos, and ethos means personality. Ethics cover many issues and discussions in different disciplines. The ongoing ethical debates in many fields such as anthropology, economics, politics, law, medicine, criminology, psychology form the basis of these fields. Since ethics deals with universal values, it deals with judgments and truths that can include all human practices. Ethics, which is based on concepts such as good, bad, right, wrong, justice, crime, value, virtue, conscience, divided into different subjects. So, how is important is it medicine? Privacy inability of an individual or group to seclude themselves or information about themselves, that thereby express themselves selectively. When something is private to a person, it usually means that something is inherently special or sensitive to them. The domain of privacy partially overlaps with security, which can include the concepts of appropriate use and protection of information. Privacy may also take the form of bodily integrity, the right not to be subjected to unsanctioned invasion of privacy by the government. The issue that the physician will always protect the privacy of the patient has been defined by the laws of Hammurabi, reinforced by the Hippocratic Oath, and is now a legal obligation with many regulations. With the feeling trust they have in physicians, patients share their own secrets with their physicians that they will not share with others, and open their most private body parts by relying on the ethical identity and professional principle of the physicians. For the reason, physicians have to act according to ethical principles in their relation with patients, respect the religions, beliefs, and thoughts of patients, and pay attention to individual and social sensitivities. So, with the developing technology, artificial intelligence systems are developing in a way that can help physicians and may one day replace them. This leads to new ethical discussions. So what is intelligence and what is artificial intelligence? Intelligence is ability of people to learn, understand, think, reasoning, planning, problem solving as a set of mental functions. Intelligence over time to education, learning, and depending on environmental factors can develop. Artificial intelligence is an effort to produce an intelligence outside one's own. In recent years, the size on and complexity on the increasing data in the field of medicine has excited human capability. Intelligence computer algorithms known as artificial intelligence have started to work on big data without the need for programming, making it possible and to obtain meaningful results. Without the need for clinicians to categorize data according to their characteristics, when these data are processed by artificial intelligence in their plain form, they can turn into meaningful outputs. In the near future, artificial intelligence will take anamnesis using verbal and visual data, evaluate the patient's vital signs, make rate. He or she or they will suggest preliminary diagnosis to the physician. He will make recommendation for examination and treatment according to preliminary diagnosis we have chosen. If we want, we will be able to read the information that artificial intelligence scans from to the web or search text about our diagnosis. It will renew the diagnostic recommendation according to the results of the examination. So, who is responsible for artificial intelligence errors? The design researcher or the software developer who implements it, or the manufacturer who transforms it into the product, or the administrator who decides to use, or physician who uses it. The patient-physician relationship, which is described as asymmetrical, also includes information inequality because the physician and patient have different information. In general, when it comes to the use of artificial intelligence in health systems, we will no longer need to talk about classical trust between the patient and physicians. But a trust consists of different parts. So, example, we will the treatment of a 30-year-old patient who is treated for AIDS and who is incapable of making decisions about herself himself. Be decided at the end of his or them life. Here, many normative concepts such as the sanctity of life and inviolability of life, human dignity, patient's autonomy, constant fair distribution of research and quality of life must be considered in the decision-making progress. Again, these decisions with social, psychological, religious, and legal dimensions. So, how will all these normative concepts and different dimensions be evaluated with the algorithms of artificial intelligence systems within the framework of moral action? We have no ethical theory for artificial intelligence yet. If there are artificial dilemmas in decision-making processes, the normative concepts included the dilemmas can be theoretically evaluated within a certain algorithm and decided by artificial intelligence system. But which ethical theory will be used in this decision progress, and who will choose this theory? These systems should they decide according to deontological ethics, utilitarian ethics, ethics of virtue, or Islamic, or Christian, or Jewish ethics. What will happen if these systems were better developed over time in developing ethical arguments and could make more ethical decisions than physicians, or autonomy? So physicians should adapt to artificial intelligence and have compassion in this field. There is a need for international conscience and ethical regulations will eliminate all these risks, ensure the development and use of artificial intelligence systems that are transparent, accountable, capable of meeting the needs of humanity, and consist with ethical values. At the same time, he or she should be inclusive, restrained, and alert to problems that artificial intelligence will create. As a result, artificial intelligence is computer science that deals with design of intelligent computer system. While searching for answers to basic theoretical and philosophical problems, artificial intelligence studies continue. The current potential in artificial intelligence is currently working as decision support system and to assist physicians in their clinical practice. So, thank you for listening to me. Do you have any questions? Do you have any question or suggestion or French or English?
Is there any questions or relevant comments for the
Thank you for everyone.
There is a question. There is a question.
Thank you for the presentation. Taking a look at the topic, conflict of technology and ethics. And as you go through the slide, thank you for your fine presentation.
You're welcome.
But I would suggest that I did not actually see the actual conflict between technology and ethics. What are the conflicting issues? All right? And how do you suggest to be able to solve these conflicting issues between technology and ethics to be able to prevent the privacy of the patient? Thank you.
You're welcome. We have so many issues for this problem. The doctors and researchers and developers, they are talking about these problems, but we haven't got any ethical theory for artificial intelligence yet. So we will see.
No solution.
No solution, not yet. Unfortunately, it's so new for us, for world, for universe also. So I don't have any answer for you because I don't know.
Maybe in the future.
Maybe in the future.
Artificial intelligence
I hope we
can
will
solve
see
this
soon.
problem.
Yes,
I hope yes, artificial intelligence maybe can solve this problem
yes,
also.
maybe.
Just a joke.
On it is can be cancelled.
Yes. Any more questions? Yes, there is one more.
Thank you. I am Mohammed from Medical University. I have a question. You talked the basic ethics of our idea came through the religion, not science, like Jewish, Christian, or Islam. If any of this religion believe they are better than everyone, they are better than another religion, what we can shoot, what we should do against them or parallel them. We have lots of history of betraying and inhibiting the science against some religions, and now they should study us to find how we should use our devices to use to further any science. How we can stop the religion to use it against us, not against themselves, not us just. How we can use science against the religion to cure the disease, not cure the hallucinating ideas that they are better, they are worse, they are.
You say we are just using science.
We use in science, but we should
Than
collaborate with religion.
Okay.
In any religion because of ethics. But we should have our own ethics in science, not religious ethics. Scientific ethics.
We have scientific ethics, but we haven't got artificial intelligence ethics. They are different because artificial intelligence is very new for us. So we are making new ethic rules, new questions, new maybe religions for after the artificial intelligence.
And you say religions, persons should answer these questions, not scientists?
Also, scientists can answer this question, but ethics is not science. Like it's science, but it's a discipline.
Dr. Dilem, sorry for interrupting, but we are running out of time, so can we move on? Sorry about that. Can you just discuss later on?
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And I'm pleased to invite intern Dr. Ali Ardakame to make his speech entitled Fundamentals of Artificial Intelligence.
Dear colleagues, distinguished guests, my name is Srdakani. I'm an intern doctor here at the Munis University Faculty of Medicine, and this is the croissant, which may seem like an innocent little snack. However, if you are a baker, it can actually cause you quite a bit of pain. You see, studies have shown that naked goods, which are baked goods devoid of any packaging, whether paper or plastic or what else have you, can sell up to 3 times more than their packaged counterparts. Moreover, bakeries with a wider selection sell the most products. Logically, you may think, then what is the problem? Have the naked goods on display, and the customer may pick and choose as they please. Well, unfortunately, what's going to be fun for the customer will be a nightmare for the clerk. Without any packaging for identification, the clerk will have to remember the individual price of every item by heart. And the bigger the bakery, the more difficult this task will be. So how can we tackle this issue? Enter Bakery Scan, the brainchild of one Hisashi Kanbei, the CEO of BrainCo operating out of Tokyo, Japan. Using artificial intelligence, Mr. Kanbei was able to create a machine which is able to scan a baked good, identify what it is, and automatically insert its price into the telling system. Happy customer, happy clerk, and no more pain for the baker. So why did I spend all this time talking to you about the woes and troubles of owning a bakery in a medical congress? Well, because in 2017, after an interesting phone call from a doctor, Mr. Kanbei was able to modify his machine. And after 20 samples, he was able to detect cancer cells with more than 98% accuracy, a device which is now known as the Cyto AI scan. This is not our first venture into merging AI and medicine, and it definitely will not be our last. But first, what is an AI? An AI is defined as a simulation of human intelligence, our attempt to create an intelligence other than our own. However, AI is an all-encompassing term. It also refers to machines which are able to learn and make decisions by themselves. And much like our mind that exists in different levels, so does artificial intelligence. In its simplest form, something like a programmable coffee machine can be considered an artificial intelligence. Next comes machine learning, and the key defining feature of which it is able to learn from past data and past experience and automatically improve itself. Deeper than that is the deep learning, which is the most complex form of AI because it is inspired by the structure and function of the human brain. Multiple learning algorithms are arranged in special layers and they're able to interact with each other, allowing for analysis of vast amounts of both structured and unstructured data. For all intents and purposes, deep learning is considered to be the best form of AI. However, it is also the most sophisticated. But how can AI be a use for us? How can we apply AI to the health field? And for that purpose, I would like to discuss 3 areas with you. First is diagnostic, which currently harbors the bulk of the interest in artificial intelligence, more specifically, the fields of pathology and radiology. Visual data, although qualitative in nature, is actually very ideal for artificial intelligence to analyze and learn from because of the models we have currently. More about models later on. Cyto AI scan, as I mentioned in the beginning, American College of Radiology has ongoing research into AI, especially for X-rays, and MIT also worked on an AI for breast disease. Signs, symptoms, tests, history, all of those can be evaluated by the AI, and AI can offer not only diagnosis, but optimal course of action. And as AI are very proficient in analyzing vast amounts of data, research comes next. AI can have a hand in everything from hypothesis generation all the way to conducting experiments. We may see a revolution in academic literature production, where in vivo and in vitro laboratory practices become obsolete, ushering in a new age of in silico biomimicry, where research can be conducted on and with AI. And lastly, public health, which unfortunately I don't really have anything to offer you, because as of right now, the interest in this area seems to be next to nothing. However, the importance of this field should be more evident now than ever before, especially considering the events which have transpired within the past few years. What if an AI could have predicted the COVID-19 pandemic before it occurred? What if an AI could have alarmed us to the first signs of the outbreak and the fires could have been extinguished then and there? What if an AI using data such as flight patterns, population density, and standardized public health protocols could have predicted how fast and how far the pandemic would reach? Of course, it does not have to end with COVID. Morbidities, mortalities, prevalences, endemics, and disease trends, environmental trends, all of those can be analyzed and assisted with using AI. But how do we go about developing an AI? There are 3 major milestones in AI development. There is protocol, practice, and precision, the 3 Ps. They're not actually called 3 Ps, just call them that because it sounds nice. Protocol is referring to our AI model. The model is the basis for AI. It is the algorithm it uses to think. These models are researched and developed by computer scientists, AI experts, and programmers for various different purposes. The next stage is the learning stage, the practice stage, where your AI is quote-unquote learning. And the key feature of this stage is data. As a general rule, the more data, the merrier, because the more data you have, the more your AI can analyze. The more it analyzes, the more it learns, and the more it learns, the more precise it becomes, which brings us to precision. This is our testing and our fine-tuning stage. This is our sensitivity, our specificity, our gold standard. This is the stage where we ensure that our AI is zeroing in on the task that it's being designed for. But of course, each of these stages have their fair share of obstacles. First of all, our model may be the incorrect model, or it may be suboptimal, in which case it should be replaced with a better model. Data, of course, can always be a concern depending on your application. However, insufficient data can critically halt the development of the AI, in which case it actually prompts some AI developers to do their data collection and the data processing before they even choose a model. But let's say we have the correct model, we have sufficient data, but our AI is still not precise, in which case we need to provide further instruction within our AI's programming to guide it back in the correct direction. There is one last obstacle which actually governs the rest of these, and that is time and power, which may seem like 2 separate entities, however, they synergize and work as one. Time is self-explanatory. It's the duration it takes for the development of the AI, the majority of which is within the learning stage. Power is referring to processing power. The same way our brain needs neurons and nutrients, the AI requires processing hardware in order to analyze data. And as far as technology has come, where a good amount of processing power can be available to you even at home, there's still room for improvement. So the more sophisticated your AI, the more data you may have, the longer duration. The longer duration, the more time it's going to take. The more time it takes, the more pressure it's going to put on your hardware. Conversely, if your hardware isn't sufficient or inadequate, the more it's going to increase your time. So it becomes a balancing act between the two. But once all the variables have been addressed and the optimal point has been reached, the end result will be an artificial intelligence. Now, I would like to finish by discussing some advantages and disadvantages. Speed, efficiency, and consistency are part of the course with any type of technology. Computers are able to do the exact same task the exact same way every single time. Accessibility, however, I would like to draw your attention to because it is relatively unique to artificial intelligence. You see, artificial intelligence is software-based, meaning it's not some big piece of heavy, expensive machinery where it may be hard to acquire or hard to maintain. Once it has been hashed out, it can be uploaded to the server, and anyone who has access to that network will be able to have access to the AI, on which it will be available 24/7, allowing for flexible workload. And speaking of workload, healthcare workers are tired, they're burnt out, some even driven to the point of depression and suicide. And although AI may not be able to help with the physical aspect of healthcare, it can most definitely help with the theoretical, allowing healthcare workers to prioritize other tasks and easing some of the responsibilities, because a healthier healthcare worker will also mean a healthier patient. But of course, things are rarely so easy. As always, ethics is always a concern. And as I will not delve too deep, as we just had a wonderful presentation about digitalization and ethics, but ethics always asks the same simple question, which is very difficult to answer. How much should this intervention intervene? Next, the man-machine barrier. I'm not simply talking about when it comes to operating technology or interacting with the technology. Health is a matter of life and death is very much a human matter. There will be those who will be opposed to entrusting such a delicate matter to a machine. And although many may have their own reasons for it, there are some inherent flaws to the AI which we're aware of, which can be a proponent to an argument against them. AI lack critical thinking, they lack creativity, they lack instinct, and they lack experience. And although those may be vague, subjective human traits, they do have a very legitimate standing when it comes to objective tasks. And as such, this warrants a constant surveillance of our artificial intelligence, not only to ensure that it's running correctly and it's running smoothly, but also to ensure that it is not making any mistakes and it's not overlooking anything. There is also a security aspect to the surveillance. As software, AI is vulnerable to particular threats, such as malware, glitches, data leaks, and even hacking. And lastly, decades ago, people thought that we would be driving flying cars by now. I don't know if you can tell by the traffic outside, however, our cars are still very much underground. What if this is a fruitless endeavor? What if it's some scientist playing around with computers? What if it yields no results? What if it yields results, but results are not good enough? No better than what they have or what you already do. What if our AI does not fly? It's good to be optimistic, however, pessimistic thoughts are also valid and they require examination. I, for one, have these thoughts. However, whenever I sense my mind take a darker turn, I like to remember that anything is possible. I like to remember that science is about progress. I like to remind myself about that one time a croissant might have helped cure cancer. From the bottom of my heart, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. William, for the last speech. Does anyone have any questions or contributions? We are pleased to accept few questions.
This question for Dr. Ayat. The lane on AI in the operation theater replace some specialists like anesthesiologists. Sorry, sir. Are you referring that will we be able to rely on AI in an operating situation?
Yeah, and if we get relied on them, what if we replace some specialists like anesthesiologists and pathologists?
Well, so is your question about replacement? AI replacing the healthcare worker? Okay. Well, the short answer would be no. Partial assistance or partial replacement is of course very feasible, but it's more of the nature of the beast than it is about AI. So in terms of capability, AI are stratified into 3 levels. We have the narrow AI, we have the general AI, and the super AI. All the AI we have now, right, currently, are all considered to be narrow AI. And narrow AI is an AI which is only capable of conducting one task or similar tasks within the same scope. A general AI can do everything this human does, and a super AI can do anything that a human does and even better. Now, due to the inherent flaws that we talked about, and due to the high skill ceiling nature of healthcare work, we're going to need at least a general AI or a super AI to be able to completely replace a healthcare worker. And for that end, you're pushing your AI into singularity, which is self-sentience, self-awareness. And who knows how many decades or centuries in the future that's going to be. But as of right now, partial assistance, partial replacement is of course feasible. And mind you, this is not even addressing the physical nature of the work, which is going to require a level of rheumatization which also doesn't exist yet. So, is it possible that basically anyone will be able to be replaced with machine? Yes, but in terms of healthcare work, it's going to be many, many years into the future, not right now.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for Dr. Ali.
Eğer ki hayatımızda hiç eğer olmasaydı nasıl olurdu? Size şöyle söyleyeyim. Her şey daha az parlak, daha az yeşil olurdu ve daha az parlak yeşil. Çünkü eğerler ormanların derinliklerinde tek bir kibritle devrimlerin kıvılcımını ateşler. Eğerler Nobel ve Guggenheim'ın aklına takılır ve o kodu bu kodu çözerler. Eğerlerle içinizden haykırmak gelir. Eğerler bariyerleri kırarlar. Asla yalnız yürümezler ve aşırı bulaşıcıdırlar. Eğerler aşikardır ve son anda golü atarlar. Eğerler günü umursamazlar, robotlarla bile konuşabilirler. Karşı takım soluklanırken oynamaya durmadan devam ederler. Sadece basit bir kelime öyle mi? Hayır. Eğerler asla uyumazlar, hep daha fazla çaba gösterirler. Eğerler bakar, araştırır ve en beklenmedik zamanda ortaya çıkarlar. Eğerler klonlanarak çoğalırlar. Acaba gerçekten yapabilir misin? Yaptın bile. Eğerler aklınıza girmeye çalışan güler yüzlü şakacılardır. Eğerler kapıları açarlar, asla kaybetmeyeceklerini bilirler. Ve biraz gün ışığına her zaman hazırdırlar. Her şey bir eğerle başlar. Çünkü eğerler ne zaman dönüşür, ne zamanlarsa şimdi. Ve şimdi nasıla dönüşür. Nasılsa asıla. Eğerler bakış açınızı değiştirir. Eğerler oyunu değiştirir. Eğerler dünyayı değiştirir. Biliyoruz. Çünkü biz eğerlerle çalışıyoruz. Yakın Doğu Üniversitesi.